It's time to learn geography now. Hello everybody, it's Rose Basemera from Uganda and today I'm checking out geography now. It has been quite a minute. I actually do have a playlist on geography now. I love geography. It was my best subject ever, so I do enjoy these kinds of videos. Actually featured in the Ugandan video of geography now, so check that out as well to know more about my country and see me in that video. So today I'm checking out geography now, Greece. It wasn't on my list, but I met a friend who's there. David, I'm talking about you. So I got interested in knowing more about it. Of course, I was a huge fan of the Greek mythology, the Greek gods, all those. I liked it when I was growing up. I liked all that story, Medusa. I liked all those things. I don't know if it was a child in me, but even I'm grown up, like that's one of those ancient content or like that I'm so interested in, just like the Egyptian stuff. I like the Greek mythology. I find it interesting. It's one of those histories that ain't boring, that is like you get the point. Anyway, let's just jump straight into the video.
You're the one that I want. You're the one that I want. Ooh, 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 you're the one that I want. You get my reference, right? You get it? I'm so
don't
clever, right?
get it.
Do you get my reference?
I don't get it.
It's time to learn geography now. Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. Greece
Hi,
is sometimes
Barbie.
seen as like the cradle and birthplace of European civilization and thought. So much of everything you see today has some kind of correlation to Greece. Pretty heavy for a relatively small country in the Balkans, eh? Yeah, let's find out how it all went down. So let's just jump into it. Greece is located in the southernmost part of the Balkan Peninsula that stretches into the Ionian, Mediterranean, and Aegean seas, bordered by 4 countries.
Ionian,
in the north and east.
Aegean,
The country
I
is
don't know,
divided into 13
Mediterranean.
regions, 1 autonomous state that we'll talk about later, and the capital Athens. One of the oldest capitals in the world where nearly 40% of the entire population lives. Now, despite the administrative makeup, Greece is generally divided into 9 geographic regions: Thrace, Macedonia, not to be
Thrace,
confused with this place
Macedonia.
that we already talked about, Thessaly, Epirus, Central Greece, the Ionian Islands, the Aegean
Even the
Islands,
names
and
are hard.
Crete. As you can probably tell from its makeup, Greece is one of, if not probably the most seafaring marine-emphasized countries in the world. I mean, they do have the world's largest merchant marine fleet after Japan. And at any given point in Greece, you are no more than 85 miles or 137 kilometers from the sea. Greece has over 2,000 islands, only about 220 of which are inhabited, and about 4,000 extra islets, keys, and sea rocks. Even the ones that are like right off the coast of Turkey. In fact, the only 2 significant islands belonging to Turkey in the Aegean are Imbros, or Kanachale, and Tenedos, or Bozcaada. Now, keep in mind, the Peloponnesian Peninsula is not an island. It's actually just barely connected by the Corinthian Isthmus in the city of Corinth, which has a huge canal going through it. After independence from the Ottoman times, Greece was very intent on making sure they kept everything in the Aegean. This has historically led to some controversy from Turkey in regards to things like the delimitation of territorial waters, airspace, the executive economic zone, and the militarization of some of the islands. Nonetheless, they've been able to work stuff out, kind of, but some things are still left in a gray zone, with the only land dispute they have over these 2 small scraps of land, the Imia or Kardak Island. Finally, let's talk about the 1 autonomous state. See this little guy right here, the 3rd finger on the weird monster claw-looking peninsula? Well, that peninsula is called Halkidiki, and the 3rd finger is Mount Athos. With a population of only about 2,000, Mount Athos, or Holy Mountain, is interesting because it's an isolated monastic state completely run by monks and priests. Getting in is a little tough. The number of daily visitors is restricted, you have to have a special permit, and you have to be a dude. No women allowed. Although historically some women have either accidentally or intentionally got in, including this former Greek beauty pageant winner. She dressed up as a man and snuck in. The 3 largest cities are, of course, Athens,
Would I pull it off? Probably
and
not.
Patras. However, the 3 largest and busiest airports are Athens, Heraklion on Crete, and then Thessaloniki coming in at 3rd. Speaking of Crete, each inhabited island in Greece kind of has its own charm. Of course, there are too many things to list, but a few to consider might be things like Corfu, being the most family-friendly island. Delos is known for being the legendary birthplace of Apollo. Skyros and Hydra are kind of like the quiet islands where more people use mules than cars. Rhodes once held the Colossus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Caria once tried to become its own country at one point in time. Naxos and Paros are known for being the windy islands, great for sailing and water sports. Santorini, with its ridiculously picturesque cliffside white marble villas. And Patmos, the incredibly significant religious site in which Jesus' disciple John was exiled and wrote the book of Revelation. Speaking of which, Greece has more archaeological sites per capita than any other country in the world, only ranks behind a few other countries like Turkey and Mexico in terms of overall sites. Now, we all know Greece Greece is a tourist hotspot. Like
Of
France,
course.
more tourists than the entire population of Greece visit Greece every single year. Now, we all know about the
should
Acropolis
visit.
and the Parthenon, but other cool sites that stick out include the Meteora Pillar Cliff Monasteries, the Necromantion of Ephyra, the Oracle of Delphi, St. Theodora's Chapel with 17 oak trees sprouting with no visible evidence of roots, the sculpted face on the shore of Nisi, the Chios former leper colony buildings, the Palace of the Grand Master of the Knights of Rhodes, and of course hundreds and hundreds
How
of
do I
other
want
sites.
to
There are too many
Rhodes?
lists, and if you know of any, please write them
Rhodes,
down in the
okay.
comments below and share. In the meantime, we gotta get down to the foundations of the country, the land.
Physical
Now, there's an old
geography.
Greek saying, when God made the world, he took the leftover rocks, threw them behind his shoulder, and that's how Greece was made. I kind of paraphrase that a little bit. Don't quote me on it.
Too late. It's a quote now.
Now, Greece is funny because land-wise, they don't exactly score high on the Soil Performance Index, and overland transportation has always been an issue. But when you pretty much dominate the maritime trading sector, you can kind of turn a semi-arid rock zone into a flourishing agrarian hub. Wait till
True.
we get to the Israel episode. They've done quite an interesting
I can't
job.
believe you spend so much money representing his people. On the West Bank, I don't care what the West Bank. Talk about me. Talk about the
First of all, the country's about 80% mountainous on both the mainland Balkan region and the islands. Two main mountain chains form along the Balkan mainland, the Pindus in the west and the Rhodopes in the northeast, Macedonia and Thrace regions. Right around the area where Thessaly meets Macedonia, you find Mount Olympus, the tallest mountain in
Mount
Greece, notable
Olympus.
for being the legendary home of the ancient Greek gods. Now, with
Greek
the exception of small
gods,
boats
yes,
and canoes,
Olympus.
almost all the
I know
rivers in
that.
Greece are
That's my childhood right
non-navigable as
there.
They are too shallow. Nonetheless, the largest river, Aliakmonos, flows through the Pindus range and eventually empties into the Thermaic Gulf right by the Monster Claw. Also, Trichonida, the largest lake, can be found in the south-central Greek region. Beautiful, right? Well, it comes at a cost. Greece is one of the most seismically active countries in the world as it lies on two major tectonic plate zones, the North Anatolian Fault and the Hellenic Trench. This means that although frequent, earthquakes in Greece are relatively mild because they usually have epicenters that are in the sea, or, you know, Turkey just kind of takes the biggest hit. Greece gets about 250 days of pure sunshine a year. 7% of the world's marble mines are found in
250,
Greece,
wow.
and they're also the
That's
third
like
largest
3/4
olive
of the
oil
year.
producer. Speaking of which, if you've never had Greek food, you are not allowed to die until you do. Popular
I
dishes
have
like
to.
moussaka, spanakopita, the classic Greek salad, pita with gyros, the real kind, not that cheap sleazy stuff down on 14th Street in which half of the meat is made of cornmeal. Nonetheless, agriculture only makes up about 4% of their economic output. Most of the revenue at over 80% comes from tourism and service jobs.
Probably
Otherwise, some notable
tourism, yeah.
spots in nature would be places like the Vikos Gorge, the Sami Cave in Cephalonia, the
beautiful.
Culture Blue-Eyed Spring, volcanic rocks of Lemnos, Neda Waterfalls, Pozar Hot Springs, and so much more. In a nutshell,
Yep.
Greece is like a rocky, rugged, seafaring realm of merchant ships and olives. Could have said that like 3 minutes ago and skipped this whole segment. Well, on to the next.
Demographics.
Winston Churchill once said, "Greeks don't fight like heroes. Heroes fight like Greeks."
Okay.
First of all, Greece has about 11 million people and has one of
That's
the highest aging
little.
populations in Europe. The vast majority of the country, at about 93%, are made up of ethnic Greeks, and the remaining
Okay,
7%
Greeks.
are mostly made up of other groups like Albanians, Gypsies, and Turks. They use the
Turks.
Type C and F plug outlets. They use the euro as their currency, although prior to the euro, they used the drachma, which was the oldest consistently used currency in the world. And they
Drachma.
drive on the right side of the road. Now, pretty much anyone that has ever been to school at around age 12 will know how much Greek history has played a role in the Western world. The history is too long to explain in detail, but in the
But it's
quickest way I can
interesting.
put this, Minoans, Mycenaeans, tribes and city-states fighting against Persians at Thermopylae, which is where Gerard Butler came in and did this. Alexander the Great ushered in the Macedonian Empire.
Dude, he was
What?
Greek.
No, he
no,
was
yes,
not Greek.
Yes,
He
he
was
was.
never Greek.
How many times?
He-
Then there was classical Greece, Roman Greece, Byzantine Greece, Ottoman Greece, and then
Yeah,
finally a
guys.
revolution led by this guy in 1821 that started the modern version of Greece that we have today. Thanks to Alexander the Great, multiple regions on 3 continents experienced some form of Hellenization or the influence of Greek culture and language, and it went all the way down into the Byzantine era. This means at one point in time, even black Africans were speaking Greek, or at least the ancient Koine Greek language. It became so
Oh.
widespread that today almost every language in Europe invokes some kind of Greek origin in certain vocabulary. For example, in English, we have academy, telephone, grammar, and even geography. Not only that, but Greek has in one way or another been spoken for over 3,000 years, making it possibly the oldest consistently spoken and written
My boob
language
is
in the
itching.
world.
Ouch.
The
Ouch.
Shang Dynasty. Moving on. We could go on and on talking about Greece's explosively fascinating ancient history enshrined with legend, myth, wars, warriors, trade, alliances, gods, beasts, Sparta, sculpture, arts, leaders, philosophers,
Very
games,
many.
and interesting clothing
Very
options.
many.
Well, that'll take too long, and we gotta get through
Clothing
this episode.
options,
About
just
90%
lie
of the people in Greece
naked.
adhere to Christianity, mostly in the Eastern Orthodox branch, just like many other countries in the Slavic world. If you've ever met a Greek person, you'll know that most of them definitely have a unique way of carrying themselves. Many of you Greek geograpeeps, or as I like to call you, Geogra Greeks, have told me that the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding is actually kind of a pretty accurate representation of a typical Greek family upbringing. A little exaggerated, but nonetheless not far off. Big families with strong opinionated parents that you do not talk back to. There's always like a weird grandma mumbling something about the Turks.
Hello,
and one of the
Africa.
cousins is probably lighting something on fire as your brother is getting into a fight. But when grandma brings in the souvlaki and moussaka, everyone sits down and it's like a beautiful, warm Norman Rockwell painting. At least that's the picture you Geogra Greeks have painted for me. I don't know, how was that? Was that in the ballpark? So anyway, in Greece, voting is required by law, as is conscription for men ages 16, yeah, that's right, 16, they get them while they're young, up to 45 for a minimum of 9 months in service. Many people celebrate
It's like
name
South
day
Korea,
instead
but
of their
South Korea
birthdays,
is
in which they
more,
have a party on the day that
18
pertains to
months.
the patron saint that they got their name from. Land is
Doubling
kind of limited,
these
so to
people.
save space, many of the dead have their bodies exhumed after 5 years of being buried, and then the bones are washed in wine and then placed in an ossuary. Retirement homes are incredibly rare, as most Greek grandparents typically end up living in their children's homes. Traditional music can be found everywhere. You'll probably hear a lot of lutes, mandolins, and tambourines. Traditional dances are alive and well. They all usually incorporate some kind of group number with fast-paced movements and jumpy actions. Oh, and old guys smoking while playing backgammon. There's always old guys smoking and playing backgammon. Avoid the offensive mutsa hands. And just like we studied in the Estonia episode, Greece has an influx of women, like a lot. Somewhere around 60-65% of the population is female. This may or may not be the reason why Greece is also the world's most... How can I put this in a non-crude and vulgar phrasing for our children viewers? Greece is the most hey active country in the world. They even beat Brazil.
What's hey?
Brazil. Interestingly enough,
What is
Greece also has the lowest divorce rate in the EU as well. Speaking of that, okay, let's talk about some numbers. Brutal, sometimes image tarnishing numbers. Let's just address the elephant in the room and get it over with, okay? Yes, Greece is in a little bit of an economic pickle right now. Basically, in a nutshell, back in 2001, Greece joined the EU. Long story short, they misrepresented their financial statements, they entered an IMF and ECB memorandum, and now the current generation is paying for all the fiscally irresponsible actions the previous one made, with things like hiked taxes as well as salary and pension cuts.
You know, son, back in my day.
Yeah, back in your day, you ruined my day. Greece also has the highest unemployment rate in the
Back
EU
in your
as
day,
well,
you
with nearly a
ruined
quarter of the
my day.
population seeking jobs. Nonetheless, as depressing as that sounds, Greece actually, interestingly enough, has the lowest suicide rate in the EU. Now, before we move on, here are some
have
rapid
the
fire
lowest
notable
everything.
contributions Greece has made to the world. Inventions like the watermill, alarm clocks, lighthouses, the crane, construction levers, catapults, a crude steam engine, central heating, and technically the first robot. Concepts like citizenship, early democracy, atom theory, various fields of mathematics like geometry, advancements in disease study and medicine, philosophy, theater, dynamic sculpture and art, written history, trial by jury, and of course, the Olympics. Notable Greeks would probably include Eratosthenes, Leonidas, Pericles, Homer, Plutarch, Euripides, Pythagoras, Euclid, Archimedes,
Pythagoras
and
theorem.
Apollonius,
He's done and brought
Herodotus,
it.
and also...
Huh? Pythagoras.
Don't say it.
Theory.
Don't say it. Alexander the Great.
No.
Yes.
No.
I'm gonna
He
say
is
he
not
is
Greek.
Greek. Yes, he is.
Modern contemporaries like Konstantinos Karatheodori, who taught Einstein, singer Nana Mouskouri, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. Yep, he's actually half Greek. Tommy Lee, Yanni, soccer players Georgios Samaras, Georgios Karayounis, Konstantinos Mitroglou, this crazy guy who ran like 1,000 miles in 11 days, Queen Sofia of Spain, and of course, America's Greek sweetheart, John Stamos. Don't even try to get on this list. Okay, friend time.
Friends on.
Greece is really old, like, whoa,
It's
really
really
old. They've
old.
planted so many shifting diplomatic ties throughout the millennia that it's ridiculous. In a nutshell, though, they generally get along pretty well with other Orthodox countries, mostly in Eastern Europe, as theology and doctrine have always tied them in one way or another. Of those Orthodox countries, Serbia is probably hands down the closest childhood friend. Serbians are like the next door
Serbia.
neighbor that they grew up
I
with.
did
asking if
geography
Greece
down
could come out and
Serbia.
play
Check it
ball.
out.
Nonetheless, you don't have to be Orthodox to roll with Greece. Greeks love the Spanish and Italians almost as much. Each country shares a similar Mediterranean seafaring culture that has historically tied them for thousands of years, although each claim that they have the best olive oil. Greeks have even adopted certain Italian words in their vernacular, like una fazza, una razza, one face, one race. And as mentioned before,
Una
Armenia
fazia,
is kind of
una
like the exotic
razia.
apostolic girlfriend they've been dating since like the 3rd century AD. Turkey is kind of like the whole Japan-South Korea thing, in which historically they've had a lot of drama because, you know, Ottoman times, but they love to visit and piggyback off of each other's cultures. Today, there is virtually no tension between everyday citizens. They've moved on, mostly, and sometimes it's even hard to distinguish a Greek person from a Turk just by looking at them. But make make sure you do not make the mistake of mislabeling them. That's a huge no-no. When it comes to your best friend, though, almost every geographer Greek told me Cyprus. Many Greeks don't even really see Cyprus as a separate country, but rather just an extension of Greece. They love their little brothers with funny accents and would do anything for them. In conclusion, modern-day Greece may only make up about 132,000 square kilometers, but has been the standard source of inspiration for so much of the Western world. The fact is, today you can look around and see how much of our modern society has been in some way, shape, or form molded by something Greek. Kudos to you, Greece. And by the way, kudos is a Greek word. Stay tuned.
For real, kudos.
Kudos.
I use that word a lot, kudos. Anyway, that's it for today. To our geography now, Greece. We went all the way to Greece, or Greekland. I have fun with it. Of course, the earlier videos were a bit minimalistic, 30 minutes. The current videos go like up to 30 minutes, 27. But yeah, I still got something here and there. Nice. Anyway, what is hey hey? It's like more than Brazil. What's hey hey? Please someone tell me what hey hey is. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Basemera. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'm out. Bye.